Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Dean Cottrill. I'm here with Lisa Piccardo because Chris Riley's in the back. Chris runs our marketing for us and supports us in that area. While we're going to just start and talk a little bit about today's first step in this, Lisa, you and I can kind of chat a little bit while we let everybody get in the room. It takes a few seconds for this to all happen. So this is a trilogy. I was asking Lisa, what's her big trilogy movie that she loves?
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. So we thought we'd have some fun and talk about and what we want to do here over the next 3 webinars that we're going to roll out for you. And today is the first one. So today we're going to dive into the foundational steps of helping you grow your organization. These are the steps that we work with clients on. And we strongly encourage you, whether you work with us or work with anybody out there or do this on your own, these were the steps that we would encourage you to go through. And this is the order too. We'll take you and we'll show you actually a full order of the process to help you grow a much stronger foundation and a much stronger business moving forward. So Lisa, any opening comments before we dive in?
No, I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, this is what we call a flash webinar, guys, because we want to give you a lot of good content in a short period of time. So for some of you, you might not know who we are. So I'll just do a quick overview of T360. Who are we? So if you look at our services, Lisa and I run the brokerage and team consulting division. We also have, which we perform, of course, a lot of financial benchmarking, but we have organized real estate consulting. We help in the MLS and the association space. We have a great tech team, technology team that dives in and works in that space. Talent and hiring. We do a lot of placement within real estate. I always say the white picket fence of residential real estate. We place roughly about 70 management to C-level executives each year. Event planning and execution. You're thinking about running an event. We actually run some of the biggest events in our industry, down to the most boutique, small events for organizations as well. So we have a group that does all that. We do a ton of research, and frankly, that's one thing that probably most of you, if you know about us, know about our research, our trends report. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Marketing consulting, we actually have a really great team. Chris is a part of that. Frederick Carreau is also part of our marketing consulting team, and we dive in and we support merger and acquisitions and also valuations. Core competencies, we're focused on operations, really diving into operations, understanding what's making things tick. We're all about creating efficiencies. Recruiting is very big, as we know, in our world. So recruiting, we're specialists in that space. We also mentioned the technology. Other initiatives, the idea is creating some real deep bench. A lot of people come to us to work with their bench of others in their organization to help create a stronger bench. And we're all about building a roadmap to help you get from where you are now to where you want to go.
And we do all this in the white picket fence of residential real estate, right?
Yep.
So we're not commercial or outside of that.
Yep. And that's the one big difference. A lot of like McKinsey's and the other large consulting organizations out there, they're going to dive in a lot of areas. We stay within the white picket fence. Here's what we're mostly known for is our research. We've done the trends report. This is the Stefan Swan, we call it the SP trends report, or the T3 trends report now. And it's been around 18 years now. We've done that report. Last one just came out in December, this past December, with 10 of the biggest trends that we find going on in our industry. And we spent about 1,000 hours doing some deep research. And we also have the Almanac, which is a compilation of the SP 200 top ranking of 200. We do the Mega 1000, the ranking of the top 1,000 brokerages in the industry, and a whole bunch of other research and insights into what's happening in our industry. All right, so now we're going to pivot now and move right into the 10 steps to a high growth business. And feel free to use the chat, guys, as we go through this. If you have questions, want to kind of dive in deeper on anything we talk about, just let us know. So if you see here the 10 steps to high growing business, this is the exact mirror of what we do in what we call our fellows program. And we'll talk about that at the end. But the first 3 steps, 3 modules is what we call them. They're foundational. Then we move into 4 modules on growth, taking that organization. And once we know the foundation and have a clarity there, we move into growth and growing that organization. And the last 3 modules of the work that we do is scaling that business. We actually, the terminology we use, this is like an MBA in running a real estate organization. And this is both we and large teams, and also brokerages will go through this program.
So our trilogy today, we're going to focus on the foundational. And then in 2 weeks, we have another 30-minute session on growth. And then following that one on scaling.
Yep. So we'll piecemeal this. All right. So let's dive right in. Foundational steps to a high growth business. There's 3 that we're going to start with: discovery. Also, what we call this an annual business review. This is a deep audit of the business. And we're going to get into detail on that in just a second. Competitive assessment is that second step, understanding your competitive landscape and how your value prop stacks up, and see if there's any gaps that you need to fill. Also, areas that you want to accentuate, you want to amplify. And then the third area is strategic intent. Let's create a clear vision of where you want to go. And most of us in our space don't have that clear vision. So we want to start with, where are we going? What do we spend all this time, money, and energy on? Where are we going? And then what are the steps or the roadmap to get me there? And that's what we're going to do today.
Okay, so let's dive into step 1, that foundational step, which is, we call it annual business review, but it's really about discovering your business, right? So it's something you should definitely do every year. And so we look at total income, right? What is your gross commission income? If you have transaction fees, referral fees, any other sort of fees that come into your business, what does that look like? Second is cost of sales. So that's, of course, your agent compensation, referral fees. If you're paying transaction coordinators by that, whatever that might be, cost of sales from the income that's coming in. And then operating expenses, I'm going to dive a little deeper into operating expenses. We have some recommended categories for that as well. And then retained company dollar. What does that look like? And your profitability, of course, why we're all in this business. Like in the end, how much money are you making? What's your return on investment? Mm-hmm. And then we look at performance and production, right? So how many units have you sold? What's your average sale price? How many agents have you recruited? All of that. Like, how do you compare to the marketplace? What are your net recruiting numbers as an example, is something we look at. Retention and churn. We also look at that. Market positioning. How are you ranking? Where do you rank? What is your market share? All of that. What's your people and organizational structure as well? So the object of this module or of this first exercise is to really evaluate your company. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the KPIs that we look at here. Let's see. So this is a document that we go through. And if you notice, it has last 12 months and previous 12 months. We think it's really important that you look at this year over year, or if your expenses are rising and your cost of sales are going up, then your net profit is declining. Really look at each of these categories year over year. How many agents do you have this year? What happened to your average commission per transaction side this year versus last year? So we analyze that. So we look at 7 key areas of profitability. So first is agent count. What's happening there? And, as far as benchmark, like we believe, the benchmarks that we see is that a healthy business should be increasing their agent count with a net growth of at least 20% a year, right? Anything to add there, Dean?
Yeah, just going to say also, there's a lot of caveats, we'll put an asterisk because depending on your market, we'd want to know your agent population in your market, how many agents are in your market. Some markets are larger than others. So when we talk about these, we're being more general when we do, but there's a ton of benchmarks that we dive into. We get real specific to you. So you'd have to know what your market is. And these 7 key areas, agent count, as a best practice, most brokerages don't take into account their churn rate, what's also known as a disassociation rate. So what are you averaging on a 24-month window? If you look at the last 12 months, 13 to 24 months, average those out. And what are you losing? And make sure you take that into account when you plan out your growth for the next year. And like Lisa said, if you're under 10% net growth, that's red. 10 to 20 is going to be yellow. If you're over 20% growth, that's green. We want to be growing. Now, if you're from 2 people and you go to 3 people and you say, hey, that's a 50% growth, we might challenge you a little bit on that. So, when we say percentages, you have to take everything into account.
And I think we also encourage you to look at, we know some models, you're getting rid of that bottom quartile all the time. So you really want to focus on churn on those top 2 quartiles. Are you retaining 92% of your top 2 quartiles? Units sold. So that's something to look at year over year. And the other piece of that is, one of the things we meet when we consult with people, and they'll say, well, we're down 20%, but but everybody's doing bad. Okay, well, define that, really know what is really happening in your market area. If you're down 20% and the market's only down 10%, you're not doing so well. If you're down 20% and the market's down 30 or 40%, you're doing pretty well, right? So that's really important to understand your direct market area and whether you're down. The same with average sale price. What's your average sale price and how does that compare to the market? Is your average sale price rising or decreasing? What's happening in the market? Average commission per transaction side. We look really closely at this and we show you really the difference that going from 2.7 to 2.6 makes to your bottom line. It's substantial, and encourage you to look at your agent, each agent in your company, who's discounting, what does that look like? Retain earnings and company dollar. Again, are you bringing on, do you have too many high producers doing the bulk of the business? Maybe you do need to focus on bringing on some newer producers. What can you do to increase or retain your company dollar? Operating expenses, I'm going to share some additional details on that in a minute. And then the bottom line, of course, return on revenue, net profit. Dean, do you want to touch on some of the other things that we benchmark?
Yeah, these are 7 key areas, because we'll talk when we go through an analysis. These are the 7 areas you really want to stay highly focused on, because, excuse me, they will actually give you the best return for your time, your money, and your energy. So these areas here are really areas that you really want to focus on. But within the audit that we go, we have roughly about 30 benchmarks that we go through when we highlight red, yellow, green, how you're performing, and we discuss best practices. These 7 are at the top of that equation. We're going to get into operating expenses, Lisa's, on more detail. But real quickly, you can ascertain if your net profit, if you're driving down in the single digits in a net profit number, that's something to really hone in on. Why is that so low? How could you improve it? And then all these different areas here, the other 6 areas are going to be ones that can help you improve it.
So we categorize things in 6 different categories, sort of industry standard. Staff, of course, that's owner comp, leadership comp, and we encourage you to break that out, right? Break out your owner comp versus your staff comp. That's your payroll, benefits, all of that. Facilities, what your rent is, your CAM, even if you're paying a mortgage back to yourself. Marketing. So this is we also have lead generation marketing. So the difference is that marketing is your overall marketing, your signs, all of that. Lead gen is anything that you're capturing leads. And we don't really have benchmarks on that, but we really encourage you and work closely with our clients to measure the ROI on the money that they're spending on lead gen marketing as well. And then technology, again, we have benchmarks for this, and then everything else goes into other. So we have sample P&Ls that we give out that we help, encourage you to put things into this category. Dean likes to say that QuickBooks puts everything into alphabetical order, but we're not Sesame Street. We want to do something. We really want to categorize into these categories. Yep. So as part of our annual business review, we also do and encourage you to do, whether it's on your own, a marketing and technology review. Do you have consistent branding? I do a lot of marketing audits, and you'd be surprised how many different logos and colors, and you can't figure out it's the same company. So are you consistent across all channels, right? Do you have solid content and calls to action on your website? What social media channels? How many followers? What sort of content are you putting on your social? Digital marketing. Are you doing digital marketing? How are you measuring the return on investment on all of that? Do you have recruiting marketing materials? Listing and buyer presentations, very important. Buyer, even more so. That's one of the trends we talk about in the trends report. The importance of really helping your agents show their value as a buyer. And then lead generation. We have a spreadsheet where we really dive into what was the conversion rate on every lead that you took. And then we also have a technology scorecard. So our technology team does this where they review all of the systems and tools that you're offering. and they do a high level sort of scoring. And they might say to you, like, you have a great stack, but if you want to scale, based on back to, your strategic intent, where do you want to go? If you want to scale, it could be challenging with the current systems that you have. So that's something else that we provide.
Also, before we dive into the competitive assessment, also think on the tech stack, the average technologies in our industry is 12.4. So roughly between 12 and 13, right? What's that 0.4? So it's 12 or 13. So just something as another benchmark for you. Some organizations that our tech team will take a dive in, they'll have 36, and it's just way too many. You can't, the adoption rates are typically abysmal, and there's a lot of money being there. So just watch how many technologies. 12.4 is the average that we see out in the marketplace.
And you have the right technology for your model, right? That's another chapter in the trends report. So they speak to that as well in the tech review.
Yeah. And that's something, I know Chris put in the chat, how many of you guys do tech reviews? That's something you want to make state. I mean, that's the sexy squirrel that everybody runs after, that new technology, things like that. But you really want to make sure and hone in that you have the right technology for your brand, you have the right technology for your culture and everything else to help you in your business. All right, let's move into the second area for the this flash webinar on these foundational steps for you and your business. So the first one, as Lisa just shared with you guys, is this foundational audit of your financials, your organization, your marketing, your tech. Take a full view and let's see, how am I operating in all these areas? What areas can I tweak and make improvements on? Financials, the expenses, all that. Now we're going to say, let's now look outside at your competitive landscape and say, okay, let's find out who in my market am I competing with and what's their offer and how do I stack up? All right, so research your competitors, right? You want to do a deep dive in there, conduct a SWOT analysis, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats on your company and the competitors. Let me re-emphasize that. Do a SWOT on your company in addition to everybody else that you're doing an analysis on. One thing also to think about, guys, is who you're going to be looking at. Look at the 8 companies out there that agents have left and gone to, or if you're interviewing agents, who else are they interviewing? Those would be a short list. If the number one market player is not on that list, and if you're not the number one market player, I would definitely look at your number one market, a share owner, and as a business, and evaluate them as well. Compensation plans is definitely something you want to get some insight on. There's so much now put online. Websites, Zoom calls. We talk about systems and strategies of how to discover this information. And then also service offerings. What are the offerings provided to the agents in form of technology, tools, systems, support from the staff, things like that. And then market positioning. That's what we're talking about in the statistics section. What is the position? What's their list side market share? What's their total market share? How many agents do they have? What's their per person productivity? What's list price, sales price? What's their average sales price? All these things are critical areas that you want to keep in and hone in on your organization, of course, but also on your biggest competitors that you compete with. The objective here is adjust for your market, your actual market, really know what's happening. Just like I bet you in the last 6 months, you've probably pivoted on some of your offerings. You probably pivoted or made a change in somewhere. Don't make assumptions. As we know, you don't want to make assumptions. There's a catchy little phrase there, but I won't go down that road. But when in this, don't make assumptions, do a deep dive, understand what your competitors are doing, understand that so you can clearly come back. This is this will show you our document that we use. So at the top is statistics. Then we get into the SWOT analysis section, constitution of the company. We want to know about what their typical client is, agent value, facilities, what are they providing? What's their financial setup? Is it a tiered setup on the compensation? Is it a flat fee? Is it a transaction fee? What is it? Is it a cap model? All that insight, all that information is very, very helpful. Company and competitor information and statistics. So this is what we just kind of highlighted, the brokerage model. What type of model is it? What's the annual sales volume? That's the statistics section. That's going to help you kind of get a sense of how they're performing. Company size, agent count. I mentioned that, per agent production, units and volume, average sales price, listing sales price, percentage of markets, a share. So you really want to, because you guys want to own the listings, right? Own the listings. So have a good sense what's happening there. And then total units percentage of listings versus buyers, incoming versus outgoing agents in the last 12 months. So how are things flowing on that agent count when people go? You want to pay a lot of attention to that. especially for your organization. That helps you in your churn rate. Also know what's going on with the competition. Constitution of the company. This is another section where we dive in and say, hey, who's the leader? All right, what's that leadership like? Agent, broker, consumer, what's their philosophy? We say A, B, or C. You know, A is agent-centric, B, broker, C is consumer. Everybody is a little bit of all those, but which one is primarily their focus as a philosophy? Mission and vision. Find a lot of these, as you see in that one visual right there on the screen. You'll see them right on the website. Typical client, you might find they have a typical client. They work in this area, this part of the city. They actually have this typical clientele. It's not saying they only hone in on that area. That's the only thing they do, but they potentially, that's the majority of what they do. Culture. What is that culture? Are they a fun culture? Are they business? Are they cutthroat? Do they stab each other in the back? You know, all those things. Philanthropic expression. Are they outreaching? Are they giving back to the community? What's that look like? And then agent value, and there's another section. So these are other things. So this is kind of taking each section of that document that quickly scrolled and giving you really more insight into each one of those areas. So agent value, support services. All right, so what services are they offering? What branding and advertising do they provide? What's it look like? Go and look at their advertising, their branding. What are they doing? Websites, technology, lead gen. Do they have lead generation? If they do, how do they charge the agents for any lead gen? What's that look like? What are they charging? Facilities. What's their facilities look like? You know, they run down. Are they nice? Are they beautiful? Do they have no facilities? They're all about working from home. Training, onboarding support. And what's that look like? And then events. What kind of events do they have that they provide to their agents, or also to their sphere, to a potential events that they do for a broader audience for past clients and customers?
And you can just find so much of this by like going on their social, going on YouTube. I mean, you'd be surprised how many brokerages explain their whole value proposition on their YouTube channel, and or go to their website and look under careers and see what you can find.
And then what happens at the end, what we do and what we encourage you guys to do, of course, it's hard to do in your worlds because you can't walk down the street and talk to your competitor, is that we have these programs that we run, it's geographic exclusive. So we have everybody present this. So if you're going to do this internal, you might want to consider your leadership team having somebody take one company, somebody else taking another company, somebody else. Also, if you're a team, we have quite a few teams that go through this process and work through this. So if you're a team, who are the teams out there that you're competing with? They could be within a brokerage. They could be a teamerage, meaning they're a team that's a brokerage, they're an independent, whatever they are. You want to take a deep dive down and then present that to your group, and you guys can mastermind within your organization would be our recommendation.
Okay, so that was step 2. So 1 was discovering your business, 2 is competitive assessment, and 3 is strategic intent. I love this exercise. So this is like, who do you want to be when you grow up? I like to say it that way, but it's the nature of your goals, right? Are they financial? Or are you looking to sell your business? Succession planning? Like what is the end state of your business look like, or 5 years down the road? What milestones are you planning? What projects do you have in the works? What challenges do you have to overcome? So the goal of this exercise is to really, again, determine that end state of your business. So we show this great Harvard Business Review article on, how strategic intent is really something every leader needs to do. Where are you going and how do you intend to get there? So the first step of this is setting your outcome, right? What's your ultimate strategic intent? What will you receive personally? What's your time frame? We met with somebody yesterday. It's like they want to get from 400 million in sales to $1 billion in sales, and in 10 years be in a position to sell their business. So what does that look like? You design your roadmap, you create 4 milestones, and then you define each milestones, how many agents, sales volume, core systems, key marketing, what do you need for each of those milestones? And then we have you implement or determine at least 3 projects for the first milestone, because this is a document you're going to update every year, right? So you want to work on that first milestone. What are the projects to complete that first milestone? You can't get to milestone 2 until you pass milestone 1. What staff, what resources, we poke holes in it. We work really closely with you on it. But again, everybody should sort of have this living document on your desk, every year that you revise. So again, just to summarize, our 10 steps to high growth business, the foundational steps we went through. 2 weeks, we'll go through the growth steps, which are brand story, recruiting persona, recruiting process, and goal setting. And then in a month from now, we'll be going through scaling, business generation, and spear marketing. So how can you exit these steps? So we run a program called T3 Fellows, and it's a 12-month MBA style program. We are now accepting applications for the spring program. It is geographic exclusive so that we don't have competitors in the same market. So it's a great time to apply. So we work, basically the goal is to help you all as competitive brokerage and or team leaders to transform your organization into best-in-class brokerage. How it works is that, so each month we have a different module. We just described those 10 modules. The first month is a group session. We have a group session. We have an instructional meeting basically where we give you an education. We talk about some things on each of the modules, and then we give you an assignment and you work on that for 2 or 3 weeks. And then on week 4, you come back and we meet with you. If there's anything financial, it's a one-on-one consultation with Dean or I. And then so there's, let's see, 10 modules, 3 of them are financial. So those are one-on-one consultations, and all of the rest are group masterminds. So that's why we don't want competitors in the same group. And so we also have a class limit. So we do 2 in-person retreats a year, which are awesome as well. So the requirements are that you have to be committed to growth. You must have a stable sales and revenue. It's not sales coaching. You really just have to have the time to commit. That's the big thing. And I mentioned geographic exclusivity. Application process, you would go on our website. Chris will put that in the chat. And you can apply. We set up a one-on-one meeting. We spend some time, 45 minutes or so, diving into your business, understanding what your needs are, and talking about if it's a right fit for you. So our next class, we start twice a year. It's in early March. First come, first serve. So Dean, I'll let you talk about some results of some past.
So now we'll highlight some proof of concept, right? So here's some folks who've gone through it. David Davin runs a Portside Real Estate Group. Dava came through the Fellows Program a number of years ago now, probably around 5 years ago, 6 years ago. She continues to be a client with us, but she went from being a team roughly in the 40 to 50 million range, and had some agents on the outside of her team that really liked her and stayed with her. And she's now grown out of that role of sales and into a CEO role, running her operation. 830 million is what she just closed, over 100 agents. She's in 5 locations now in 2 states. So has done a phenomenal job. And one of the things that we want to highlight here, this is not all about, hey, T3 and Dean and Lisa, did all this ourselves. No, Dava's the rock star. But we supported and highlighted and provided support for her as she ran down the road that she wanted to run down. So that's an important piece there.
I talked to somebody today who said the same thing. They went through the program a couple of years ago, and they're still working the plan, and it's exactly, it gave them a lot of clarity on where they wanted to go. Mm-hmm.
And then we have Matt Curtis. Matt is a Team Ridge, largest, most successful team in Alabama. He's out of Huntsville, and Matt's just awesome. He's another rock star. But you can see his quote there. He doubled his profit. It was a 7-figure profit. He doubled it through working with us and spending time with us. He had tremendous growth. You can see from those numbers there how he'd grown from roughly 45 million up to 243 million. His average sales price, just as an FY, is on the much lower side. But he'd end up getting over 1,000 units with 30 agents. So incredible per person productivity. He's a phenomenal practitioner. And then Megan runs, and she's part of an ownership group up with Century 21 Northland out of Michigan. And you can see her quote there. She talks about how the impact was. It was interesting. I had a call with our other partner, Brad, and they're talking about when they went back to think about all the things they've implemented from the program. The list was so long, they were blown away when they go back. So, oh my gosh, we've done so much. So Megan's, and again, it's Megan, it's Brad, it's Julia, it's Jason on their team that really do a phenomenal job. And we support them in that process of helping them grow their business.
So next steps, go to t3fellows.com, and we'd love to talk with you and meet with you. So thank you so much for attending. If anybody has questions and answers, Chris will put our emails in there and you can reach out. Yeah,
we're actually right at time. So it's 30 minutes. We talked about a flash webinar. How about that? We got it in at 29 minutes and 30 seconds. So it's a lot of information, but if you have any questions, throw it in the chat. So if there's any, you guys have our email addresses. We thank you all for joining.
We'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right, sounds good. Take care, guys.
Thanks.
Fill out an application if you're interested. We'd love to talk to you, hear more about your business.